I first saw her an ancient Stegosaurus charging through a world on fire. When the predator closed in, she turned to fight not for herself, but for what she needed to protect. Their shadows swallowed the night, and the roar of the hunt faded into the trees. By morning, the forest looked untouched, soft sunlight, a quiet stream, and an uneasy silence. Then I spotted it, a tiny Stego curled up in the grass, breathing softly, all alone. When it opened its eyes and stared at me, my heart made the decision before my mind did. I knelt down, held it carefully, and whispered, "I've got you now." With the little one against my chest, I crossed the cold water and headed for home. That night, I fed it drop by drop, hoping my hands could become its new family. I held the dropper to his tiny mouth and offered a careful sip, and his bright eyes went wide. So I slid a shallow bowl closer, steadying it with both hands while he finally drank properly. Once his thirst was gone, he waddled onto the wooden floor and sniffed the room like it was a brand new world. Then he broke into a clumsy little sprint, kicking up dust in the sunbeams and making me laugh. I carried his plate over fresh greens and a slice of watermelon, and he dove in without hesitation. He licked the sweet juice, smacking his lips like he'd discovered the best treasure on earth. I even diced the watermelon into cubes. Big mistake, because he went wild and painted the tiles red with happy chaos. And when the mess was done, he padded after my feet by the fridge, staying close as if I'd always been his person. I heard a thud in the kitchen when I ran in. My little Stego had tipped the basket and turned onions into rolling chaos. In seconds, the whole room looked like a produce explosion, with smashed watermelons and greens carpeting the floor. I stood over him with a broom torn between scolding and laughing, because his guilty face almost worked on me. So I took dinner outside and fired up the grill, hoping a little fresh air would reset our day. But one stray ember kissed the dry leaves by the fence, and I didn't notice fast enough. My Stego did he lowered his nose to the ground, sniffing the smoke like a tiny guardian on patrol. Then I saw it too, reflected in his wide eye, a flicker of fire growing brighter. Before I could move, he shoved a metal barrel over, sending a wave of water rushing straight toward the flames. The yard hissed and steamed as the flood spread out, and I realised my little troublemaker had just saved us. In a heartbeat, the flames jumped into the yard, and I watched my Stego sprint through the smoke to find me. Ash clung to his back plates, turning our brave little hero into a dusty, trembling statue. When he swung his tail, I saw his spikes were scraped and singed, and my chest tightened with guilt. Still, he shoved his weight into a heavy barrel, rolling it straight toward the hottest glow. The moment it tipped, a burst of white foam and water smothered the flames with a loud hiss. When the smoke finally thinned, the place looked unrecognizable. Blackened boards, wet ash, and silence. I dropped to my knees and wrapped my arms around him, whispering thank you over and over. And as I laid a hand on his warm plates, I promised him we'd rebuild together slower and safer. The next morning, the yard was a black patchwork, and he stood by the coiled hose like he was waiting for me to make things right. I knelt beside him and wiped the soot from his cheeks, and he leaned into the towel as if forgiveness could be washed on. On the ridge, I watched the red sky spill over the smoky valley and promised him our home would rise from these ashes. So I took him into the forest where the light fell in soft beams and every step felt like starting over. At the stream, he lowered his snout to the cool mud, curious again, testing the world with gentle little sniffs. In the bright shallows, he dipped and drank, and I finally saw his eyes turn peaceful. I laid out a picnic by the river watermelon slices, our old favourite, my small thank you for his big courage. As dusk settled, he waded through the dark, calm water, and I followed behind, grateful we were still together. The peace didn't last one sharp splash, and I saw a crocodile rise from the dark water with its jaws wide open. Before I could react, it lunged at my Stego in the muddy shallows, turning our quiet walk into a fight for space. Water exploded everywhere as those teeth snapped close to his plates, and I shouted his name like my voice could push the danger back. The crocodile crawled after us, heavy and stubborn like like it refused to let us go. I got to his side, putting myself between them for a heartbeat, guiding my Stego away from the river's edge. When we finally reached the rocky ground, he slowed down, still glancing back like he didn't trust the silence. We found a calmer stretch of water, and he stepped in carefully this time, testing every ripple before moving on. But even then, a hidden snap caught at his tail, so he whipped his spikes hard, and I yanked him forward until we were clear. His tail carved through the water like a whip, and the crocodile jerked back, choking on mud in surprise. A huge blast of spray erupted as the river swallowed the struggle, and I used that heartbeat of cover to move us away. My Stego burst onto the muddy path, stomping through puddles and dragging us towards safer ground. But when I glanced back, the crocodile was still there on the bank, watching like it hadn't given up. So my Stego planted his feet, raised his tail high, and struck again the moment it rushed clear. Message: no fear. The water boiled with one last violent swirl, then the crocodile turned and fled, leaving only a torn wake behind. In the misty shallows ahead, my Stego slowed down, walking carefully as the world finally quieted. I slid my hand over his warm plates and breathed out a thank you I'd been holding in my chest. And behind us, the river swallowed the shadow, one last glimpse underwater, and then it vanished into the deep. I watched my little Stego drink from the stream, his reflection trembling in the ripples, like the fear was finally drifting away. Up close, the sunlight caught every scratch on his plates, and I silently promised I'd protect him better. We headed home along the river road at sunset, our long shadows walking side by side like a single story. Back in the yard, he waddled to his tiny baby Stego's home, shaking off dust as if he'd made it back from a war. I set out a tray of watermelon cubes, and he chewed slowly, safe enough to taste the sweetness again. Then the sky darkened, and over the fence a giant T-Rex silhouette rose like a nightmare standing up. It thundered down the narrow path between the fences, kicking up dirt as it charged closer. A heartbeat later, it burst into the backyard, roaring, and my whole body went cold. But my baby Stego stepped forward, plates flared and tail lifted, telling the monster this home wasn't empty anymore. The T-Rex didn't just roar, it charged, and the ground shook under my feet. In my own backyard, my baby Stego swung his tail to keep that huge head away from me. He dropped low, letting the predator's legs thunder past while he searched for one clean opening. When the T-Rex tried to clamp down, my Stego twisted hard, refusing to be pinned. We stumbled through splintered boards and dust, and I could see he was hurting, but still moving. Then he struck one sharp tail swing that sent the T-Rex recoiling in a cloud of dirt. The monster screamed back at the sky, furious and shocked that a little Stego could fight. Heavy footsteps pounded the earth as it circled us, looking for a second chance. My Stego held his ground, and when the T-Rex overreached, he landed another warning hit. From above, it must have looked like a storm spiral, two shadows circling, until the T-Rex finally gave up and pulled away. Inside our fenced yard, it hissed and leaned in again, but my Stego held steady with his spikes raised. Up close, I saw the predator's eye flicker, anger, fading into a grudging respect. Then it spun on its heels and tore through the gate into the trees, leaving only drifting dirt behind. At dusk, my Stego's silhouette stayed tall against the fading sky, like he was guarding our little world. When the danger was gone, I rested my hand on his plates and felt my own heartbeat finally slow. I crouched and hugged his face, whispering that he'd never have to fight alone again. By the time we reached the garden path, our home looked calm again, scarred but still standing. That night, he curled up in his pen, under the moon, safe enough to sleep. I carried a heavy basket of fresh fruit to his stall, because heroes deserve a feast. He bit into the watermelon with a soft crunch, and the sweetness brought his brave eyes back. Under the bright moon, he wandered past the warm-lit house, checking every corner like a tiny sentinel. When the yard finally went quiet, he walked into the misty dark and let the night take over.